This is A News. I'm Bakhtiar Sanova, and let's go through the main headlines. The United States launches new strikes on southern Iran near Hormuz. Israel launches fresh Lebanon strikes after Netanyahu orders escalation. And Muslim pilgrims gather at Arafat for key moment of Hajj. The United States says its latest strikes on southern Iran were carried out in self-defense, targeting missile sites and boats near the Strait of Hormuz. The attacks come at a delicate moment with diplomatic talks still underway in Doha and growing concerns over the risk of wider disruption to global energy markets.
The US military says it has launched new strikes on southern Iran, targeting Iranian missile sites and boats attempting to place mines. US Central Command said in a statement the strikes were taken in self-defense and were designed to protect our troops from threats posed by Iranian forces. Central Command spokesperson Captain Hawkins said the strikes targeted an area near Bandar Abbas, a southern port city and home of an Iranian naval base that sits on the Strait of Hormuz. Iranian state media had earlier reported that local officials in Bandar Abbas were investigating after explosions were heard. Iran is yet to respond to the latest US strikes. The attacks came as Iran's top negotiator and foreign minister were in Doha for talks with Qatar's prime minister on a possible deal with Washington to end the 3-month-old conflict. Despite the renewed tensions, Iranian state television said 32 vessels and 5 oil tankers passed through the Strait of Hormuz in the past 24 hours, with authorization from Iran's Revolutionary Guards naval forces. The standoff has caused a spike in oil prices and driven up the costs of fuel, fertilizer and food. On Monday, oil prices fell more than 4% to 2-week lows, amid optimism that a deal might come soon. Meantime, in his Truth Social post, Trump also called on more Arab and Muslim states to sign up to the Abraham Accords, brokered during his first term in office and aimed at normalizing ties between those states and Israel. Trump said Saudi Arabia and Qatar should immediately sign, and Pakistan, Egypt, Jordan and Turkey should follow suit, calling his request mandatory.
China has praised Pakistan's role in encouraging US-Iran dialogue while pledging support for regional stability during talks between Xi Jinping and Shehbaz Sharif in Beijing. Mahnur Maktoum reports.
China has lauded Pakistan's proactive and constructive role in the ongoing diplomatic effort to keep talks alive between Washington and Tehran, a recognition that comes as Islamabad has significantly stepped up its outreach to both sides in recent weeks. President Xi Jinping commended Islamabad directly, acknowledging that Shehbaz Sharif had just returned from Tehran. This exchange took place at the Great Hall of the People here in Beijing, where Chinese President Xi Jinping called Sharif an old friend and praised what he described as an unbreakable bond between the two countries. Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi also said that Beijing was willing to strengthen coordination with Pakistan on regional peace and stability, including the protection of trade and energy routes through the Gulf and the Strait of Hormuz. China has long maintained that dialogue and diplomacy are the only path to lasting peace in the Middle East, and Beijing sees its growing partnerships with countries like Pakistan, Iran, and Saudi Arabia as central to that effort. Pakistan, for its part, has increasingly positioned itself as a credible mediator, a role that Beijing appears keen to support. Mahnur Maktoum, A News, Beijing.
Israel says it has launched new airstrikes across Lebanon after Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu ordered an escalation against Hezbollah. Netanyahu said Israel is at war with Hezbollah and must intensify strikes, while Hezbollah said its attacks are in response to Israeli violations. The Israeli Defense Forces said it hit Hezbollah positions in the Bekaa Valley and other areas, while Hezbollah responded with drone and rocket attacks on Israeli military targets in the north. The renewed violence comes amid growing regional tensions and ongoing diplomatic efforts involving the United States and Iran. 4 people, including 2 teenagers with special needs, have been killed after a train struck a school van at a level crossing in Belgium. The crash happened early Tuesday morning near Buchenhout station, north of Brussels. Authorities said the victims included the driver and an adult escort traveling with the pupils. 2 other students were seriously injured. Belgium's Transport Minister Jean-Luc Cruc said security camera footage showed the crossing barriers were down at the time of the collision. Forensic teams remain at the scene as investigators work to establish exactly what happened. Russia has issued a fresh warning of intensified strikes targeting Kiev's defense and command infrastructure, while urging foreign diplomats to leave the capital. The warning comes as Russian attacks killed 8 civilians and injured more than 100 others across Ukraine, raising renewed fears of further escalation.
Russia has threatened a new wave of systematic strikes on Kiev on Monday, days after launching one of the largest attacks on the Ukrainian capital since the start of the war. In a statement, Russia's foreign ministry said the strikes would target Ukraine's defense industry facilities, drone production sites, decision-making centers, and military command posts in Kyiv. Moscow also urged foreign nationals and diplomats to leave the city as soon as possible and warned civilians to stay away from administrative and military buildings. The warning came after Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov held a phone call with US Secretary of State Marco Rubio on Monday. According to the Russian Foreign Ministry, Lavrov informed Rubio that Moscow planned strikes on decision-making centers and advised the United States to evacuate diplomatic personnel from Kyiv. Ukraine condemned the threats as shameless blackmail aimed at intimidating civilians and the diplomatic community. Speaking in Kyiv alongside Belarusian opposition leader Sviatlana Tikhanovskaya, Ukrainian Foreign Minister Andriy Sybiha urged allies not to give in to Russian pressure.
We are currently telling our partners that there is no need to give in to this Russian blackmail. We have been through all of this before, and we know when Russian President Vladimir Putin amps up this rhetoric.
The latest tensions follow a massive overnight Russian assault on Kiev and other regions, which Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said killed 4 people and injured around 100 others. Ukraine has also called for emergency meetings of the United Nations Security Council and the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe following the recent attacks.
The United States and India have signed a new framework to strengthen cooperation on critical minerals and rare earth supply chains, as concerns grow over global dependence on limited sources. The agreement was signed in New Delhi by U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio and Indian Foreign Minister Subrahmanyam Jaishankar during a Quad meeting. It aims to strengthen cooperation in mining, processing, recycling and investment in critical minerals, with both sides stressing the need for more secure and diversified supply chains.
This particular framework aims to deepen our cooperation across the entire critical minerals and rare earth supply chain, including mining, processing, recycling, and related investments. It will certainly strengthen resilient and diversified supply chains. It will help us to collaborate in financing and in the effective management of critical minerals and rare earth scrap.
Because we both have a strategic and shared interest in the fact that vibrant innovation economies such as ours cannot afford to leave the foundational materials of these industries vulnerable to single source monopolies that could deny us these things, not just in a time of conflict, but as a leverage point in contrary to our sovereign national interests.
The Quad has unveiled cooperation plans on energy security, critical minerals and infrastructure after talks in New Delhi, as foreign ministers from Australia, India, Japan and the United States highlight efforts to strengthen regional resilience and supply chains.
The Quad has agreed to launch a new Indo-Pacific energy security initiative alongside a critical minerals framework following talks between foreign ministers in New Delhi on Tuesday.
The Quad Critical Minerals Framework, which will guide each of us to leverage economic policy tools and coordinate investment to strengthen critical mineral supply chains, including in mining and processing and in critical minerals recycling.
Turning to energy cooperation, Rubio added that the initiative will focus on strengthening regional resilience through cooperation on technology, policy, market analysis and emergency response exercises. From Australia, Foreign Minister Penny Wong announced a new maritime infrastructure push, unveiling a ports partnership and a pilot project in Fiji.
We are also today announcing the strongest ever commitment from the Quad to the Pacific through the Quad Ports of the Future partnership, where we are launching a pilot for port infrastructure in Fiji. And I was in Fiji just a couple of weeks ago, and I know how important this will be to that country. It's a practical demonstration of our collective ability to deliver high-quality, resilient infrastructure in partnership with the region and in response to Pacific priorities.
Given the significant impact the situation in Iran is having on the Indo-Pacific region, particularly in terms of energy supply, we affirmed the importance of diplomatic efforts towards ensuring free and safe navigation of the Strait of Hormuz, as well as the stability of the Middle East. The Energy Security Initiative, aimed at securing a stable energy supply for the Indo-Pacific, comes at the right time. We intend to coordinate this with the Partnership on Wide Energy and Resources Resilience Asia, the cooperative framework our country is advancing for the procurement of resources, including crude oil and petroleum products.
Japan's Foreign Minister Toshimitsu Motegi also pointed to wider regional concerns around stability and safe maritime routes, including the Strait of Hormuz. Earlier in the meeting, India's Foreign Minister S. Jaishankar said the group must focus on addressing connectivity choke points and resource concentration across the region. The meeting brought together the top diplomats of Australia, India, Japan and the United States, marking the third Quad foreign ministers meeting since September 2024.
China is facing another major test from extreme weather as emergency teams battle rising water levels across several provinces. The latest floods have turned deadly with rescue operations underway and authorities releasing fresh disaster relief funds.
Heavy rain has battered several regions in China, triggering floods and landslides and causing widespread disruption, with search and rescue operations underway in hard-hit areas. Authorities in Chongqing municipality say at least 9 people have been killed, while efforts to locate 11 others remain ongoing. The southwestern region recorded 298.5 millimetres of rain in 24 hours, the heaviest on record. Water levels in several rivers running through the city rose above warning thresholds, with some exceeding critical safety limits. Floodwaters submerged multiple areas, forcing schools to suspend classes.
The floods came in no time, very quickly. In less than half an hour, the whole area was inundated.
In central Hubei province, emergency crews raced against time to reinforce endangered embankments as heavy rainfall raised lake levels.
We've built a 350-metre long and 1-metre wide levee after 6 hours of incessant efforts to prepare for the next round of rainfall in Jingzhou.
China's finance ministry says it has allocated 110 million yuan for flood disaster prevention and relief work. It follows an earlier disbursement of 120 million yuan a week ago for the same purpose.
France is continuing to battle an intense early summer heat wave after recording its hottest May day on record.
Tourists in Paris say they were caught off guard by unusually high temperatures sweeping across France as the country faces a record-breaking heat wave. Near the Eiffel Tower, Visitors gathered around fountains, shaded parks, and public spaces as temperatures climbed well above seasonal averages. France's National Weather Service says parts of the country could see temperatures reach up to 36 degrees Celsius, with heat alerts remaining in place. Several deaths have also been linked to the extreme weather, prompting authorities to introduce additional safety measures during outdoor events. Many visitors said they had expected cooler and rainier conditions in the French capital.
Well, I try to drink a lot of water, always stay hydrated, try to go to places with shade. I didn't expect it. It's the first time I visit, and they always tell me that it's cold, that it's cloudy, rainy, and I had some incredible days, really. But well, I like the heat, I like to walk in the sun, so I'm happy. I'm very surprised.
Some tourists said they were more accustomed to the heat because of the climates in their home countries.
It's okay because we live in Oman, so the weather's pretty similar. In fact, it's hotter there, so yeah, so the weather's okay for us. Yeah.
So actually, I'm from Japan, and this is like same likely as Japan, very hot and warm. So it's about same temperature as Japan for now. So, but I didn't expect that this is very warm in Paris. So I'm very surprised.
Forecasters say the heat wave is expected to continue in the coming days as concerns grow over increasingly frequent and intense extreme weather events across Europe.
Muslim pilgrims have gathered at Arafat in Saudi Arabia for one of the most important moments of the Hajj pilgrimage. Many spend the day in prayer and reflection at the Mount of Mercy, where Prophet Muhammad is believed to have delivered his final sermon.
Around 1.8 million Muslim pilgrims headed to Mount Arafat in western Saudi Arabia on Tuesday, marking the height of the annual Hajj pilgrimage. They moved from Mina at dawn, with Saudi security forces monitoring routes and walkways as part of wider crowd control measures. Saudi state media reported smooth traffic as pilgrims made their way to Arafat, where many climbed the Mount of Mercy at sunrise. The site is where Prophet Muhammad is believed to have delivered his final sermon 14 centuries ago. On the rocky hilltop, worshippers prayed, raised their hands, and sat in quiet reflection, while some were overcome with emotion.
It's a feeling I can hardly describe. The feeling that God has granted us the chance to reach this place, to visit the place that the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, once visited. This is a great blessing and grace from God. Praise be to Allah.
Hajj is a once-in-a-lifetime duty for Muslims, who are physically and financially able to perform it. Pilgrims perform combined midday and afternoon prayers at Namira Mosque, before staying in Arafat until sunset and moving to Muzdalifah for the night. There, they will collect pebbles for the symbolic stoning ritual, which marks the start of Eid al-Adha, or the Feast of Sacrifice, celebrated by Muslims around the world on Wednesday. The six-day pilgrimage began on Monday in Mina and will continue with the stoning ritual and the farewell circumambulation at the Grand Mosque in Mecca.
Now we'll take a short break. Right after the break, we'll discuss rising Russia-West tensions, Moscow's warnings over Kiev, and the broader geopolitical fallout. Stay tuned. Welcome back to A News. Now we focus on escalating tensions between Russia and the West after Moscow warned of possible new strikes on Kiev and urged foreign embassies to leave the Ukrainian capital. Despite the threats, European diplomats remain in Kiev, calling Russia's move intimidation, while Ukraine accuses Moscow of using fear as a weapon amid mounting battlefield and economic pressure. To discuss the latest developments and the wider geopolitical implications, we're joined by Jan Kaspar, researcher at Matthias Corvinus Collegium, speaking to us from Budapest. Mr. Kaspar, welcome to the program and thank you for joining us.
Good evening. Thanks for having me.
Good evening. Mr. Kaspar, how serious should the international community take Russia's latest warning about systemic strikes on Kiev? And why is Moscow now urging foreign diplomats and nationals to leave the Ukrainian capital?
In my perspective, Moscow is doing this to show its domestic audience that that the government is able to put hard pressure to blackmail Western European leaders. So this is really serious, but I think that we are really in the area of informational war, communication war. The strikes from this weekend were very tragic and violent, but at the same time very symbolic. They are unlikely to change the course of the war. Militarily, they do not alter the overall balance on the front. What is more significant to understand, in my opinion, is that after having this initiative for several months, Russia has recently faced increasing difficulties on the battlefield. It still has not captured all the Donbass, nor has it managed to destroy Ukraine's economy or war-making capacity, which is the official narrative in Moscow. And at the same time, since the beginning of March, Ukraine has become increasingly capable of striking deep inside Russian territory, targeting energy infrastructure and other strategic sites. And this is about the war more directly onto Russian soil, which is why I think that the Russian leader are a little bit nervous at that time. The battlefield dynamic that seemed to favor Russia between late 25 and early 26 until the end of February has slowed or even reversed in some area. Ukraine has achieved a number of local tactical successes and regained some positions, showing that the Russian narrative of steady, inevitable advance is not entirely accurate or even false. And at the same time, Russia faces growing pressure internally. Hardline supporters of Vladimir Putin are frustrated by the lack of decisive results. And by the way, some economic indicators suggest strains linked to the war. For example, if you take a look at the results of the industrial production in the first part of 26, it was really bad for Russia. Some people, some analysts are saying that the Russians are having difficulties on the battlefield because they have helped Iran too much, and that's why they cannot put the pressure on Ukraine. I don't know, I'm not on the ground, but from a logical point of view, I think that this is plausible and that's definitely an option.
Mr. Kaspar, how important is it that the EU and countries like France are refusing to evacuate the diplomatic staff?
Because I think that although Western leaders are very weak, they are at 15% in the polls, etc. Emmanuel Macron, Friedrich Merz, Keir Starmer, but I think that they really understood all what I just said. They understood that this war is ongoing since more than 4 years now, and that the Russian narrative is actually very weak. So, although from an economic and military point of view, the European countries would not be able to face a direct confrontation with Russia, they understood that they can be very tough in their communication and in their choices. So, for example, Emmanuel Macron this morning refused to accept the gentle proposal from Sergei Lavrov asking the French diplomats to leave the country, because this would have been a proof of weakness from the French side. So I think that maybe that we are entering a new phase in this war. It becomes more and more obvious that the Russians cannot continue this war for years. In the short term, maybe they might show technical superiorities comparing to the Ukrainians, but in their general narrative, I think that everything is cracking in Russia. On the left side, you have people that are feeling this war on their skin because they are striking almost every week Moscow, and the Ukrainians are able to strike very deep into Russian territory. So the left wing from Vladimir Putin is very worried about these developments, and the right wing, hard supporter of Vladimir Putin, they are frustrated because there is clearly a lack of results since the end of February.
So in your view, could the continued targeting of civilian infrastructure further isolate Russia internationally?
Well, that already happens. There is no way that, at least in the Western world, Russia can change the general opinion that Western Europeans have on them. That's completely obvious since the very beginning of the war. But of course, if they insist to go in this direction, it will become more and more difficult to them. And at the very end, they will have to face also their own domestic audience. Because again, if we continue with this war identity, I'm not capable of saying who is going to win this war. Maybe nobody, I don't know. But for sure, if the Russians want a clear and obvious victory, they will have to put on the ground, let's say, 300,000 or 400,000 more soldiers, which has a huge political price.
So looking ahead, do you expect more escalation in the coming weeks, or is there still room for diplomacy?
Well, see, the key factor for this is, of course, the attitude of the Americans, because, as a European, I am always very sad that European leaders cannot be so impactful in the negotiations. So at the very end, it will, at the table, we'll see Vladimir Putin, Donald Trump, and also the Chinese leader, and they will try to end this war. From a European perspective, I'm not sure that they have enough pressure on Vladimir Putin to end this war. That's not possible for several reasons. I think that the main objective of the European leaders is make sure that Ukraine will be integrated in the European security architecture, because now it's completely clear that the Ukrainian army is the first army in Europe. So that's what the European leaders are trying to do, and they might have some success on this and achieve some deeper cooperation with the Ukrainian military sectors. But at the negotiation table, I really think that the key players are the Americans, the Chinese, and the Russians.
Jan Kasparov, thank you very much for joining us from Budapest and sharing your insights with us. Thanks a lot. Thanks. After the break, we'll take a look at the key stories shaping the region. Welcome back to A News, and now we turn to our regional stories. Iran has dispatched a top-ranking delegation to Doha, headed by Parliament Speaker Mohammad Bagher Ghalibaf, to discuss in direct terms of a peace deal with the United States amid surging tensions in the Strait of Hormuz.
Top-ranking delegation, led by Parliament Speaker and Chief Negotiator Mohammad Bagher Ghalibaf, and comprising of Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi and Iran's Central Bank Governor Abdul Nasser Hemmati, arrived in Doha, Qatar on Monday in a surprise visit. In the absence of official news about the high-profile visit, the combination of the delegation suggests that security, diplomatic, and economic issues, including releasing Iran's frozen assets, estimated at $6 to $12 billion, are on the agenda of the talks in Doha. Moreover, lifting the U.S. blockade on the Iranian southern ports and the Strait of Hormuz, connecting the Persian Gulf and the Sea of Oman, is expected to top the agenda of the visit as outstanding stumbling block in the ongoing peace process mediations. Last Saturday, a high-ranking Qatari delegation visited Tehran, while Pakistan's Army Chief Field Marshal Asim Munir was in Iran's capital to negotiate the terms of an interim peace agreement between Iran and the United States. Foreign Ministry spokesman Ismail Baqai said that Iran welcomed Qatar's renewed mediation efforts to broker a peace deal between Tehran and Washington, adding that Pakistan remains the main channel of mediated talks. Turaj Shiralilu reporting from downtown Tehran for A News.
Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan has held talks with Oman's Sultan Haytham bin Tariq amid mounting concerns over renewed instability in the Middle East and reports of fresh U.S. strikes on Iranian targets. The phone call comes as regional powers intensify diplomatic efforts to prevent escalation around the Persian Gulf and the strategically vital Strait of Hormuz. Our correspondent Adam Morrow reports from Istanbul.
Turkey is continuing its diplomatic outreach across the Gulf as concerns grow over the possibility of a broader regional confrontation involving Iran and the United States. According to the Turkish Communications Directorate, President Erdogan told Oman's Sultan Haytham bin Tariq on Monday that sustained diplomatic engagement remains essential to preventing further escalation in the region. Erdogan reportedly said that renewed conflict would serve no one's interests, adding that Turkey and what he described as the region's brotherly countries were continuing efforts aimed at securing lasting peace and stability. The Turkish leader also reaffirmed Ankara's support for Palestinian rights on every platform. The timing of the phone call is especially significant as it comes amid stepped-up diplomatic activity surrounding the Strait of Hormuz, one of the world's most important maritime energy corridors. Just one day earlier, Oman's foreign minister, Badr al-Busaidi, met Iran's deputy foreign minister for legal affairs in Muscat, where the two sides reportedly discussed proposals for the joint management of the Strait of Hormuz. The strategic waterway handles roughly 1/5 of globally traded oil, meaning that any instability there has immediate implications for global energy markets and shipping routes. Tensions, meanwhile, rose further on Monday evening after reports that the United States had carried out fresh strikes on Iranian targets, fueling fears that the region may be entering another dangerous phase. This is Adam Morrow for A News in Istanbul, Turkey.
Armenia and the United States have initialed a strategic partnership framework under the TREEP initiative, the Trump route for international peace and prosperity, alongside a comprehensive strategic partnership charter. The package also includes agreements on critical minerals and rare earth metals, covering extraction, processing and supply chains, as well as cooperation on a proposed 43-kilometer transit corridor in southern Armenia, linking Azerbaijan to its exclave Nakhchivan and Turkey. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio said the deal marks a new phase in relations focused on economic cooperation, innovation, and secure access to critical minerals.
By renewing the Strategic Partnership Charter, it's an opportunity to outline the future of the U.S.-Armenia bilateral relationship and creating a new path for partnership and economic opportunity for Armenians and for Americans. Finally, we also, on the Memorandum of Understanding on critical minerals, is also going to further enhance mutual prosperity. Countries that are able to do that are going to be able to find economic independence and are going to be able to find themselves at the center of innovation in the 21st century, and those who lag behind are going to suffer for it. We are going to be able to work together to make sure that both of our countries, both of our economies, are going to have reliable access to these critical minerals.
The Baku-Tbilisi night train is back after a 6-year pause, restoring one of the South Caucasus' busiest cross-border links. The first service arrived in Georgia this morning, with daily sleeper trains now reconnecting two capitals by rail. A News' Nini Nikolashvili reports.
The Baku-Tbilisi route was once one of the most popular in the South Caucasus. Before the pandemic shattered Azerbaijan's land borders in 2020, the nightly train was nearly always full with business travelers, families, and weekend visitors. For 6 years, the only way between the two capitals was by air. That changed overnight. The first train departed Baku at 11:10, pulled into Tbilisi Central Station at 9:04 a.m. this morning. The return journey from Tbilisi leaves at 9 p.m., arriving in Baku just after 6 the next morning. The trains themselves are worth noting. They are Stadler rail coaches, Swiss-built modern sleeper cars, originally purchased by Azerbaijan Railways back in 2019 for an even more ambitious route, Baku to Istanbul via Ars. The pandemic put those plans on hold and the trains sat idle for years, but today they finally made their debut run. The revival was sealed officially this month when Azerbaijani President Ilham Aliyev and Georgian Prime Minister Irakli Kabakhidze signed a joint agreement in Baku on the sidelines of the World Urban Forum.
Hello, and congratulations on today's occasion. As you know, after a 6-year pause, we have some great news. Railway service between Georgia and Azerbaijan has resumed. This is a very important route, especially considering that starting today, the service will operate daily. Demand is high. In just a few days, a very large number of tickets have already been sold. So congratulations, because this is a successful project that we will continue to develop together with our Azerbaijani colleagues. From today onward, trains on the Baku-Tbilisi and Tbilisi-Baku routes will run every day.
First of all, congratulations on Independence Day, the most important national holiday for our country. Freedom is, of course, a great achievement, and it is the responsibility of each and every one of us to protect it. Today is also significant because after a 6-year pause, the Baku-Tbilisi railway service has resumed. Starting from May 26th, this route will operate daily. Our citizens of Azerbaijan, and tourists alike will have the opportunity to travel by train. This is a very important and welcome decision that was made during the Prime Minister's visit to Baku. Naturally, this decision will contribute to the development of the economy and tourism, as well as strengthen ties between our peoples.
Tickets start at 81 Azerbaijani manats, around 127 Georgian lari for the full Baku-Tbilisi route. Passengers should factor in up to 2 hours for border procedures, with 1 hour allocated at each crossing. Nini Nikolai-Shrelik, Tbilisi, A-News.
The 4th International Conference on the UN Water Action Decade has opened in the Tajik capital, Dushanbe. It has brought together more than 110 delegations to discuss global water management, glacier protection, and progress on sustainable development goals. Running until Thursday, the meeting aims to strengthen cooperation and accelerate commitments made at the 2023 UN Water Conference. A parallel water festival in the city is highlighting the importance of water conservation and glaciers through cultural exhibitions and public events. Japan is stepping into the Caspian Sea crisis with a new $3 million environmental project in Kazakhstan. The focus is in water monitoring and protection, as falling levels raise wider concerns for the middle corridor linking Asia and Europe. Farisa Kalumurzuna reports from Almaty.
Japan is joining efforts to address the growing crisis of the Caspian Sea. Together with the UN Development Program, Tokyo is launching a new $3 million environmental project in Kazakhstan focused on protecting the sea and improving water monitoring systems. The project will be implemented with Kazakhstan's ministries responsible for ecology and water resources. Particular attention will be given to the northern Caspian, one of the areas most affected by falling water levels. The issue also has broader regional implications. The Caspian is a key link in the Trans-Caspian transport route, or the so-called middle corridor connecting Asia and Europe. The future of this trade route was discussed during last year's Central Asia plus Japan talks. Experts say lower sea levels could eventually affect shipping, port operations and trade moving across the corridor, adding to concerns already surrounding the region's environmental challenges. Scientists link the Caspian's decline to climate change, rising temperatures, stronger evaporation and lower river inflows, while pressure on water resources continues to grow. Kazakhstan has already allocated nearly $2 million for marine monitoring equipment to better understand the scale of the problem. Environmental experts warn the situation is already critical, with projections suggesting the sea level could approach minus 33 meters in the Baltic Height system by 2050. Parisa Kalimursana Almaty, A News.
Now we'll take a short break. Right after the break, we'll discuss Azerbaijan's diplomatic engagement at the United Nations and Foreign Minister Ceyhun Bayramov's visit to New York. See you shortly. Welcome back to A News. Now we focus on Azerbaijan's diplomatic engagement at the United Nations as Foreign Minister Ceyhun Bayramov visits New York City to address the UN Security Council on strengthening the international system and defending the principles of the UN Charter. The visit comes at a time of increasing global polarization, ongoing geopolitical conflicts, and renewed debate over the effectiveness of multilateral institutions. During his trip, Bayramov is also expected to hold a series of higher-level meetings with senior UN officials and diplomats. To discuss the significance of this visit and what it means for Azerbaijan's foreign policy priorities, we're joined by the advisor at the Air Center, Hussein Sultanli, speaking to us from Baku. Mr. Sultanli, welcome to the program and thank you for joining us.
Hello, thank you for the invitation.
Mr. Sultanli, how important is Foreign Minister Ceyhun Bayramov's address at the UN Security Council for Azerbaijan's international diplomacy, and what message is Azerbaijan likely trying to send through its participation in this high-level UN debate?
I think that Azerbaijan is trying to emphasize that key principles of the United Nations Charter, such as the respect for sovereignty of states, territorial integrity, the non-violation of internationally recognized borders of states is fundamental and will remain fundamental in the future of international relations. And this is something that Azerbaijan has advocated for several decades. A considerable amount of its experience both regionally, especially regionally, has pushed it to be an advocate for these principles. This is particularly important in the context of what is happening globally. Several leaders have underscored the fact that international law is not as strong and as perhaps as respected as it was previously, and in these moments, it's very important to emphasize that there are still key tenets of interstate relations that have to be respected. And Azerbaijan is a state that has always abided by those, and emphasizing that on the international arena, consistently emphasizing that on the international arena is very important. And I think that this upcoming statement will be another opportunity for this.
The meeting focuses on protecting the principles of the UN Charter. Why is this topic especially relevant today?
Well, as I said, it's relevant today because international law as a concept, as a system, is facing increasing scrutiny from different actors, but also we're seeing occasional selective enforcement of several international principles by different actors. Even if international law or adherence to international law might not be as widespread and as comprehensive as in other periods of international relations, it is still important to emphasize the fact that the UN Charter is the organ, let's say, or the framework through which states are still expected to conduct their relations, their interstate relations, and conduct their activities. In the current climate of increasing global hostility, with wars occurring on more than one continent, it is important for states to remember that even if, unfortunately, in specific circumstances, international norms might not be followed.
Mr. Sultanli, Azerbaijan has recently increased engagement with the United Nations on issues such as reconstruction, urban planning, climate action, and regional connectivity. How significant are these efforts?
These efforts are extremely significant because Azerbaijan has always identified multilateralism as a key priority of its foreign policy. As we know, Azerbaijan was chair of the non-aligned movement for 4 years. This is the second biggest international multilateral platform after the United Nations. Azerbaijan consistently engages in both regional and international diplomacy. It has already accumulated considerable experience by hosting major international conferences. So I think given this experience and given the country's desire to promote multilateralism as an idea, I think increased engagement with the United Nations, with specific United Nations bodies through specific projects are important for Azerbaijan, because I think the country views this path as a way to ensure that its national interests are protected, especially given the challenges that all states face today. In this light, I think multilateralism is perhaps gaining even more importance than before.
Do you expect Foreign Minister Ceyhun Bayramov to raise regional security issues, including the peace process with Armenia, during his meetings in New York?
I think, yes, I expect this to be mentioned, because the South Caucasus is increasingly emerging as a model, as an example of how a region which was traditionally defined by conflict, isolation, lack of economic independence, can actually evolve into something that resembles, cooperation, people-to-people contacts, and so on. I think the South Caucasus can definitely serve as an example to other regions which are suffering from conflict, from deadlock, and the portrayal of the South Caucasus, the explanation of the regional reality on such a big platform as the Security Council can definitely bring additional much-needed attention to the region. Not that there isn't already attention. There is plenty of attention, plenty of external engagement, but I think the reinforcement of these developments on the international stage are very significant, and they will continue to be very significant.
Mr. Sultanli, how is the international community currently viewing Azerbaijan's role in the South Caucasus?
I think Azerbaijan's role is increasingly viewed as one of a regional leader. I think the country has significant capabilities and significant resources, which it has demonstrated over a period of time, but it also has the luxury, or better said, it has obtained or achieved the fact that it has multiple relations with various different actors. And the key here is that Azerbaijan is an example, is a leading example of how a state can pursue a balanced foreign policy. And what is meant by this is that it essentially does not allow, one direction or one relationship affect another direction or another relationship. And I think once a state or an actor is capable of doing that, I think its chances of being viewed as a regional leader are, increased considerably. And I think this is exactly what we're seeing with Azerbaijan.
Mr. Sultanli, looking ahead, what role could Azerbaijan play in strengthening dialogue and cooperation within international organizations like the United Nations?
Well, Azerbaijan has already been serving as a platform for this. As I mentioned earlier, chairmanship of the non-aligned movement, the extending of support to countries in the global south, the hosting of international conferences on the most pressing issues today, climate change, urbanization, urban reconstruction. All of these are examples of a country that is willing to use its position, but also use platforms to share its own experience, but also demonstrate how it has overcome certain challenges. And these are, I think, perfect. That is the perfect environment to act as a coordinator, on the international stage.
Mr. Sultanli, thank you very much for joining us and sharing your insights with us from Baku. It was a pleasure having you on the program. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you. This concludes our news update for the hour. Thank you for your time and stay with us for more updates.